Right, people, it is here. Chelsea are back, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is my first match preview of the season. I have missed these so much. Listen, I like the Chelsea transfer news, I like the general videos, but nothing hits like the excitement of a match preview and like the jubilation, hopefully, of a match review. And not only will you be getting those match previews and reviews bigger and better all season long, but there should be about, twice as many of them this season, because everyone knows that we're going deep in the cups and we are winning the league. I won't clarify whether I mean Premier League or Conference League. I'll leave that one open-ended for you lot to decide. But all of that starts in the early hours UK time of Thursday the 25th, when for a second season running, we travel to America with a new manager and a lot of new players, and we play Wrexham. So in this video, we're going to talk about the game. I am going to give you lot my starting 11, and I am also going to give you lot a match prediction. But people, before we get into all that, welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. If you are new around here at the end of the video, if you like the content and you want to see more from myself, please do me a massive favour. Hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 100,000 followers before the start of the season. We're on about 96. You guys, by the way, I need to thank you massively, because since I've been asking you to hit the subscribe button, the subscriber count has really started to pick up. We're really getting close, you know. We're on about 96,000, something like that. I feel like we might be on 96,500, so I do think it's doable. We're a big preseason, lots of videos, which I promise to be banging out. I do think that we can get to 100k before that Man City game. If we don't get to 100k before the Man City game, you need to hang your head in shame. No, I'm joking, but I think we can get there either way. Let's get into the video. So on social media, the club have posted a picture of the boys on the plane about to travel out to America for the preseason tour, and as well as some familiar faces, you're also going to see some new ones, but you will also notice that there are a few faces missing. So let's go through the entire squad that have already travelled to America. So travelling out, we've got Robert Sanchez, Marcus Bettinelli, Eddie Beach, Lucas Bergstrom, we've got Wesley Fofana, Renato Vega, Levi Colwell, Axel Disasi, Tosin Adarabeo, Josh Achangpong, Benoit Badiashile, Reece James, Melo Gusto, Ben Chilwell, Leslie Ugochukwu, Romeo Lavia, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, Andre Santos, Kane Chukwuemeka, Raheem Sterling, Tyrick George, Mikhailo Mudryk, Angelo, Noni Madueke, Christopher Nkunku, Mark Gue, Amanda Broha, and Nicholas Jackson. So I think we already know and understand that the likes of Cucurella and Cole Palmer, who both went deep in the Euros, won't be joining up with the squad straight away, as will Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo, who both played in the Copa America. I'm going to read out a few names that are missing from that squad that might surprise you ever so slightly. Petrovic is not travelling. Obviously, Kepa, Chalobah, Humphreys, Alfie Gilchrist, Casadei, Washington, David Datro Fofana, and obviously Romelu Lukaku. And I don't think that there's any of you guys that were seriously expecting the likes of Kepa or Lukaku to be travelling out from the squad. Obviously, they're both angling for moves. We're trying to get both of them out, so that's no big surprise there. Some of the players that aren't on the plane, obviously Humphreys, he went on the preseason tour last season, didn't he? Gilchrist, Washington, possibly Casadei are all expected to go out on loan or to move on. David Datro Fofana is a little bit of a funny one, isn't it? Because unless something has progressed behind the scenes and we haven't really heard about this, I've actually heard way more links that Amanda Broha is going to be moving on this summer than I have with David Datro Fofana. In reality, probably both of them are going to be moved on. And I would imagine after David Datro Fofana impressed in his loan spell, by the way, more than Amanda Broha did in his loan spell at Fulham, obviously I thought that the form that David Datro Fofana showed at Burnley would then put a price tag on his head that the ownership, bearing in mind we know how they're running the club at the moment, would be happy with taking and moving him on. So I'm actually kind of surprised that if Amanda Broha's going, David Datro Fofana isn't going. At the moment, and I know the people that have watched the channel from maybe last pre-season, or people that know me personally from Amanda Broha's time coming through at Chelsea Football Club before I even had a YouTube channel, will probably look at that and go, well, hold on, you were very high on Amanda Broha at first. And I was very, very high on Amanda Broha. I'm still not writing him off, but I do think that he's really, really struggled to come back from that injury that he had. And I think at this moment in time, maybe, given the opportunity to do so, David Datro Fofana could prove himself to be a little bit more useful to this squad at the moment than Amanda Broha has. So we're stick a pin in that one. Not too sure why he hasn't travelled out. And with any of these guys, by the way, there's always the possibility that they could fly out at a later date. But what I do think is that squad announcement has given you an indication as to see what the transfer plans, the loan strategies, etc. may be for Chelsea this summer. Now, two players I touched on there but didn't really speak about. We'll start off with Petrovic. If you want to know my thoughts on Petrovic in a lot more detail, I will link in the description to the this video, a video that I made in regards to the sale of Georgi Petrovic that we're hearing about, or possibly a loan move. We're hearing that Enzo Maresca prefers Robert Sanchez. Now, obviously, I mentioned in that video that, of course, Maresca is going to prefer Robert Sanchez for this one because Robert Sanchez is the guy that he has seen on the training ground. Petrovic went sort of just as deep in the Euros as Broa did, to be honest. So I don't understand why Broa could be on that plane and Petrovic couldn't be on that plane. And actually, you think about it, I'm pretty sure Broa would have played most minutes for Albania in the group stages where they obviously went out. Petrovic didn't play at all. And for a goalkeeper compared to a striker, you would imagine that Petrovic would be fresher and available to take away. So the sign that he is not on the plane is a clear indication for me that we are going to stick with Robert Sanchez or go and sign a new first-team goalkeeper this season. I can't see any of Bettinelli, Beach, Bergstrom, any of them breaking their way into the team, even if they do get some minutes and impress on this preseason tour. I think for the time being, it's going to be Robert Sanchez. And if you want to know my thoughts in a lot more detail of who I think is the better option out of Petrovic and Sanchez, as I say, the video will be linked in the description to this one. I compare some of the stats. I give my own personal thoughts as a perspective of a fan who watched a lot of both of them from the stands last season. Trevor Chalobah. Do you know what, right? I've actually had it on good source that a couple of Chelsea players from time to time have watched the channel, including the big dog, Reece James, who actually told me personally that he likes the podcast once upon a time. Just going to drop that in there very casually, very casually. So on the off chance, the very, very small chance that this video or clip, if someone clips this up, makes it into the hands of Trevor Chalobah, I want to take it upon myself to speak for the whole of the Chelsea fan base here and apologise to you for the disgraceful treatment that you have received from this ownership. Now notice I say the ownership and not the club, and I understand that the ownership are in some sort of way the club, but listen, I was buying kits, going to Stamford Bridge, supporting the team before any of these even knew where the Fulham Road was. So I think that qualifies me to speak on behalf of the fan base here. And we, the Chelsea fan base, are just really, really sorry, man. Really, really sorry to see this situation unfolding. It's pretty clear that Trevor Chalobah wants to stay at Chelsea Football Club. He's been a great servant of Chelsea Football Club. He's gone out on loan, proved himself, come back in, performed better than signings that have been brought in ahead of him or on higher wages than him and whatnot. And yeah, you know, it's not purely tribal. If he was a boyhood blue, right, that loved the club and wanted to stay at the club, but we had better options than him. Possibly he was somewhat limited and wasn't the best player ever, and maybe wasn't a Chelsea standard player, and maybe even didn't want to stay, then perhaps this one could make sense. Perhaps it could. But when you look at our current centre-backs at Chelsea Football Club, Tosin Adarabioyo, Axel Disasi, Benoit Badiashile, Wesley Fofana, Levi Colwell. Can you name one of them for me that is definitively better than Trevor Chalobah? I'm not talking about potential. I'm talking about the here and now. Because ultimately, despite the fact that potential can often come good, sometimes it doesn't, and potential doesn't win you silverware. Definitively, here and now, name one of them that is definitely better than Trevor Chalobah. I don't think you can. He is the best centre-back at Chelsea Football Club. So, for what? The sake of 30 million or something like that, when the ownership have already felt, in the short amount of time since he's been left and excluded out of this squad, the backlash from the Chelsea fans, the real resentment towards this ownership from the Chelsea fans for trying to sell Trevor Chalobah. Can they not be able to gauge that and think, do you know what? okay, some things are a little bit more important here. And Trevor Chalobah is a man that is massively important to the fan base of this club. The people that without their presence, the fan base, there would be no Chelsea Football Club right now. Disgraceful. Because the DNA of Chelsea Football Club is something that's very important to me. I feel like it's probably something that's very important to you lot sitting watching at home. And the fact that this ownership obviously didn't really know anything about Chelsea Football Club not that long ago and still feel like they are the right people to move this club forward and to bring us on to bigger and better things would perhaps lead them to think that, hold on, we didn't even know Chelsea that long ago, so it doesn't really matter whether you are Chelsea through and through, whether the DNA of Chelsea Football Club is within you, because we feel like we can help the club, so why could players that come from other clubs not help the club? And I understand the logic that they're thinking with, if that is the case, but the logic is just very clearly wrong. As I say, 30 million maximum, probably maximum that you're going to get for Trevor Chalobah. I don't think it's enough. You spent 45 million on Axel Disasi. He might come good, but let's be honest, in his first season, Trevor Chalobah completely would have wiped the floor with the consistency and the performances that he was putting in compared to Axel Disasi's. You spent 80 on Wesley Fofana. I think Wesley Fofana's a good player. I think he'll be a key player for us this season. But 80 million you spent on Wesley Fofana, man. And that's just me talking about players in that specific position. I don't even need to start talking about the amount of money you spent on Mykhailo Mudryk and players like that. It's ridiculous, man. Listen, Chelsea fans are very tolerant. But when something like this does come up, and you gauge the backlash that you're receiving off the fan base at this exact moment in time, maybe that is the moment to pull the plug on your plans. I think the board needs to take action, man, on this one. I think they need to change their plans on this one massively. So, Trevor Chalobah, we love you, mate. We really, really do. And listen, if the move, hopefully it doesn't. If it does end up going through, I can guarantee you get a standing ovation. Whoever you play for, whenever you come to Stamford Bridge, after any potential move does go through. But I tell you what, right? With sort of more sensitive subjects like this, I think it's always good to sit down with the other big dog, Josh Aveste, and really mull over this subject, the Enzo Fernandez situation and things like that. So I am in the studio with Josh Aveste tomorrow, and we will do exactly that. If you have anything specific, any questions for us, anything you want us to talk about, let us know in the comment section, and I will be reading through them when this video goes up. But going from the players who might not be here onto the players that definitely will be here. Now, pre-season is somewhat a time for experimenting, getting to know your players' strengths and weaknesses, as well as working out what their most natural and useful positions may be. I mean, look at Pochettino's first pre-season. What were we seeing? Ben Chilwell left wing. We were seeing Ian Maatson centre attack in mid, and maybe even more that I can't remember of. So, although I don't think we'll see the same amount of experimentation and positional rotation from Enzo Maresca, I do still think there'll be some players that we do see that for, you know. Obviously, they've listed Renato Vega as a defender in this squad. When you've seen the squad picture that was put up on social media of the list of players, I personally am not sure whether he will play as a centre-back or a left-back or a centre defensive midfielder. When I look at his ball-playing qualities and when I look at some of the clips I've seen of Renato Vega, potentially to me looks like he could be more of a central defensive midfielder. I also think that this could be a good time to trial Christopher Nkunku in a couple of different positions, most notably probably left wing, seeing as we may need someone over there to be a bit more of a mainstay than a rotation like we saw last season. Nicholas Jackson, will we see him through the middle, or will we see him out wide as he played previously for Villarreal before he went on that hot run of form that made us sign him? But regardless of rotation and experimentation, I think that winning is always the most important thing here. Because winning games creates a culture of winning. And pre-season is no different, in my opinion. I mean, there'll be Liverpool fans right now off the back of their loss the other day that'll be telling you that pre-season doesn't mean anything. But I've always believed that pre-season does mean something. And if you want my reason for that, rather than just throwing it out there, look at last pre-season, man. We blew Wrexham away. Lower league competition. And we did the exact same in the actual actual season, more or less every time in the cup competitions we came up against lower league competition. We had an up and down battle with Brighton that eventually we managed to come out on top of. Remember the 3 games against them last season? Pretty similar in the league and in the cup when we faced them. We struggled and drew when we came up against some of the better sides like Newcastle and Dortmund, the same as we did when we came up against the likes of City and Arsenal and Liverpool in the actual season. So I believe that there is a lot that you can take away from pre-season, and there is a lot you can learn about how Maresca's Chelsea will approach the actual season. So whatever you do, don't write this game off. We need to be taking this game seriously, and although I understand most players will be hooked at halftime or whatever, we need to be naming a strong starting lineup for this one. So, as you can see on screen now, this is the lineup that I'm going with. Robert Sanchez in goal. It's a no-brainer, to be honest. Although you can rotate the goalkeepers, I just keep him in there for 90 minutes because despite me possibly not thinking that it is the right decision to replace Georgi Petrovic with Robert Sanchez in between the sticks, I do think that if you're going to do so, let's give him pre-season. Let's see if Maresca can coach that ball-playing ability out of him that we were promised when we signed him. The captain, Reece James, I'm glad to see him back. I want to see him in at right back. Tosin Adarabioyo and Levi Colwill as the centre-back partnership. Now, this is actually a centre-back partnership that I believe we could probably be likely to see a lot this season. I think that Tosin will get a lot of minutes for Chelsea this season, as will Levi Colwill. I read out the list there, and I was saying that Trevor Chalobah is the best centre-back, at the club. But I do believe that Levi Colwill, if he's able to stay fit and show even more of the good form that he showed in spells during his first full season as a Chelsea player, and definitely showed during his season on loan at Brighton, I think he could become our number 1 centre-back. We're going to go with Chile at left back. Now, the midfield, right? I spoke about the fact that I think Renato Vega looks better so far as a central defensive midfielder in the clips I've seen of him. But ultimately, I might be disproven very quickly with this one because I hold my hands up and say the amount of time I have spent watching Renato Vega is obviously limited. But I'm going to start him off in central defensive midfield. To one side of him, Romeo Lavia. I am so excited to see this man back. Maybe it might be a bit too much for him to come back and get 45 minutes straight away. But in pre-season, people make subs in the first half, don't they? Let's start him. Let's see how he goes. The other side of him, one man that I can pretty much guarantee will start, will be Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. He is Enzo Maresca's star student who has been brought in. A lot of people are talking about him coming up from the Championship and how different the Championship is to the Premier League. And I would agree. But I tell you what, I've got high hopes for Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. I really rated him when he was at Leicester, I really, really did. And I think that although they're not like-for-like players, one of the reasons why maybe Leicester fans weren't crying at the fact that James Maddison went was because they felt they had another real gem there in Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. On the front line, Noni Madueke, excited to see him back. No European competition for him this season, but he ended last season really, really well. And in an Enzo Maresca system, I think that Noni Madueke could be one of our most important wingers. It depends really, doesn't it, where you class Cole Palmer. Do you class him as a centre attacking midfielder? Do you class him as a winger? False 9? I don't know what. But Noni Madueke is a man who knows how to drive at players with the ball, attempt running past players, taking them on. And obviously, if you look at the style of play from Enzo Maresca last season, he had a heavy reliance upon his wingers doing so at Leicester. Obviously, both of his starting wingers ranked highest in the whole Championship, not just the Leicester team, for individual take-ons attempted. And that will clearly be an instruction that has come from the management down. Mark Yu through the middle. I really want to see this boy start. I'm a big fan of Nicholas Jackson. I would not be averse at all to Nicholas Jackson starting here, but I am hungry to see my first glimpses in a Chelsea shirt of Mark Yu. I think out of all the signings, and we've made a few here, Vega is one I'm very excited about. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, I feel like I know what we're going to get, but I just don't know what level we'll get it at from Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. But Mark Yu is one that there's a bit more uncertainty about. But I've just got this feeling. And I've always believed to trust your gut. And my gut feeling at the minute is that he could be a really important player for us this season. And when you look at the likes of David Datro Fofana, who has already impressed in the Premier League, as far as I know, being fit and available, being left at home, and then you look at the fact that Mark Yu has not been left at home, he has been included in this tour. It suggests to me that maybe he won't be going out on loan. And I think when you look at him, coming on and scoring goals for Barcelona at a young age is something that takes a lot of character. So at least, despite us being limited when it comes to our knowledge of his actual ability right now, we do know that he does have that character. Left wing, it doesn't take a genius to work out. I want Christopher Nkunku there, because I think that in Christopher Nkunku, we might have the solution already to that left wing sort of issue. And some of you might look at it and you might go, well, hold on, you've lost patience with Mudryk and we've already got Raheem Sterling there. I do understand that, but the form of both of them has been sporadic. And when I look at Christopher Nkunku, he's a man that I think could explode this season. We had massive high hopes for him coming in, and when I had actually seen him in that position last season, I thought he looked really good. Now, Wrexham are a decent little side, aren't they? Heavily backed for a smaller club. Obviously, they've been working their way up through the league, so much so that if they were to make it out of League One this season and into the Championship, it would be back to back promotions. They would have done the quadruple promotion. Has anyone ever done that? I don't know. I know Luton kept coming up and stuff, but I don't know if anyone's ever done that, have they? I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, unless it was like, don't know how many leagues Scotland have, but obviously Rangers, did they get relegated to the Conference of Scottish Football? Juventus got relegated once? I don't know, but Wrexham have done it. Star-studded names involved in the club, and actually, when you look at this little Hollywood story of Wrexham, I think it might continue. I think we might be playing them in the league one day, not anything but the Premier League, before you get in the comments and try and banter me. We're not going down. They could be coming up, is what I will say. But they've still got a few ex-Premier League players in there as well. Obviously, Fozzie's left, hasn't he? But they've got James McLean. Obviously, he played in the Premier League. Who else have they got? Stephen Fletcher. I remember him banging goals in the Premier League. I looked on Wrexham's website the other day and saw that he's there. Obviously, he's going to be a good target man for them, as has Ollie Palmer. He's always been a good player for Wrexham as well, hasn't he? Well, in a couple of seasons he's been there, he's been decent for him, and he'll still be there. But let's have it right. We should be using class against these, shouldn't we? I mean, we beat them heavily last season, and I'm not saying they weren't, they won't be better now than they were last season, but we're a lot better. What I would say that levels the playing field a little bit is, obviously, last season it wasn't coming off the back of a major international tournament. We had a lot more of the players with us still, so there will be that going against us. But then you look at this squad and you go, okay, well, some of these players have now played together. Some of these players have had a couple of seasons together now, so maybe that will go in our favour. They have improved, but either way, Chelsea should be winning here. I am going to back, I think it might be a little bit tighter than last season. I'm going to back a 4-1 win. I am going to be staying up late, waking up. I'll probably wake up, to be honest, but it's been very hot at the minute in the UK, so I'm struggling to get to sleep, if I'm honest. But either way, I'm going to be watching the game. I'm really excited to do so, and ultimately, I will be dropping a match review the morning after the game. I'll wake up early, I'll get it recorded, get it out for you lot. Honestly, yeah, you can see the smile on my face right now because I'm buzzing. I've hated not having the constant source of content to talk about around Chelsea, and as much as I've got behind England in this summer's Euros, Chelsea's my first love. I can't wait for us to be back. And ultimately, I've heard people saying online, this isn't the sort of season where we're that excited going in. Speak for yourself. I'm fucking buzzing, mate. I think Chelsea are going to have it off this season under Enzo Maresca. And until I'm proven wrong, I will keep beating that metaphorical drum. People, let me know your thoughts on that lineup in the comment section below. Ultimately, in pre-season games, I should say, a starting lineup maybe doesn't mean as much, I understand, because there's going to be so much rotation. I think you can make unlimited subs, and I think we will make a lot of those subs. And as the games move on, as we really start to go through these ones, I think it's Celtic next, we will see players start to arrive from international duty, like Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, players like that, Cole Palmer. If I forgot anyone, Conor Gallagher, there's probably loads of them. We will see them start to arrive, join in with the camp, and maybe our starting 11s will grow and get stronger as we go through the games. When you look at some of the competition we got in pre-season, including Man City, Inter Milan, teams like that, we are going to need the starting 11s to get stronger. But as for the moment, I think these boys are going to give a good showing and show the new boss Enzo Maresca, why they could be very, very important to him this season. As I say, I'm going to be in the studio with Josh Veste tomorrow. We are going to be tackling some of the harder subjects like Enzo Fernandez. Obviously, more developments on that. He walked out River Plate, I think it is his old club. And there's a few headlines there. So we'll speak about all that, man. But ultimately, for the time being, people, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're not already, I'm going to ask you one more time. Please subscribe to the channel. We're nearing that 100k mark. Hit the like button right now. I'm out of breath. I'm going to go and make myself a drink. I will see you all in the next one.